Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a bizarre and frankly, incredibly expensive new corporate tech trend. We're talking about how some of the smartest tech giants on the planet are accidentally setting millions of dollars on fire, all because of a completely flawed approach to measuring productivity in the age of artificial intelligence. It's a phenomenon that reveals a whole lot about human behavior, corporate incentives, and the awkward growing pains we're all experiencing in this AI era. Let's get right into it. 60.2 trillion. Yeah, trillion with a T. That is the actual number of AI tokens that employees at one major tech giant burn through in just 30 days. To put that into perspective for a second, if you were paying standard retail prices for those tokens using Anthropic's API, you'd be staring down a $900 million bill. Even when you factor in the massive, sweetheart corporate discounts these companies get, we are still looking at an estimated cost of well over $100 million in a single month. And the truly wild part? A massive chunk of this wasn't even spent on real productive work. It was spent on an illusion. So this illusion actually has a name, and it's called tokenmaxxing. It has rapidly become Silicon Valley's newest form of conspicuous consumption. Tokenmaxxing is simply the practice of artificially inflating your AI token usage. Why on earth would someone do that? Well, to climb internal corporate rankings, to hit arbitrary management quotas, or just to look like a highly productive AI native employee. So instead of using AI to actually do their work faster or better, employees are deliberately maximizing their prompts and running parallel AI agents just to leave behind this enormous, incredibly expensive footprint of tokens.
Section 1. Meta's Cloudnomics and the Gamification Flaw.
Over at Meta, an engineer actually whipped up an internal intranet leaderboard tracking the AI usage of over 85,000 employees. If you managed to burn through enough tokens, you could literally earn titles like Token Legend. But the real-world fallout from this was an absolute disaster. First, you had just massive waste. Developers started running internal agents that did nothing but endlessly burn tokens for zero business outcome. Second, and way more seriously, it actually caused production outages. Developers were so hyper-focused on churning out massive volumes of AI-generated code just to climb this leaderboard that they stopped checking it for quality, which led to actual server errors. It essentially rewarded throwaway, wasteful work. After catching some major heat in the media, Meta actually had to abolish the leaderboard entirely. Now, there is a working theory from one tenured Meta engineer that the company secretly wanted this to happen, to generate a massive amount of real-world training data for their next-generation models. But honestly, even if that's true, it's a remarkably chaotic and expensive way to go about it.
Moving on to Section 2, Microsoft's cultural pressure, or when managers top coding charts. Microsoft instituted its own internal token dashboard, mostly to promote experimentation. But that dashboard revealed something pretty funny. Non-coding executives were somehow topping the charts. So how exactly does a VP outcode a full-time engineer? Well, here is the step-by-step guide to token maxing your workday, straight from a developer. Step 1. Instead of using your standard internal search tool to read documentation, you ask the AI to do it. It pulls up the doc, processes it 10 times slower, but hey, it burns a mountain of tokens. Step 2. Ask the AI to prototype a feature you have absolutely no intention of ever building, prompt it a few times to get the numbers up, and then throw the whole thing in the trash. And Step 3. Default to using an AI agent even when you know for a fact it's going to fail, and you know you could just do the work faster by hand. You just sit back, watch it fail, and collect those sweet, sweet tokens along the way. Now, I know that sounds kind of hilarious at first, but there's the darker side here, and it's perfectly captured in this anonymous quote from that same Microsoft developer. I am conscious of not wanting to be seen as uses too little AI, and I'm not ashamed to say I need to do token maxing to do this. That changes the context entirely, right? This isn't malicious behavior. It's pure self-preservation. It's driven by genuine job security anxiety. Employees are absolutely terrified of being labeled obsolete or not AI native enough by upper management, so they just play the game to protect their livelihoods. Which brings us to Section 3, Salesforce and the Quota Trap. If you thought the social pressure at Microsoft was intense, Salesforce took the whole problem a massive step further by officially institutionalizing it. They actually instituted mandatory minimums. Engineers are expected to spend a minimum of $100 on Cloud Code and $70 on Cursor every single month. And if you don't hit that $170 minimum, you risk being flagged by management. They even gave employees a Mac widget that updates every 15 minutes to show their spent, alongside a web tool so they can literally snoop on their colleagues' spending. So what happens in an environment like that? Developers just ask the AI to build Project X, projects completely unrelated to their actual job, just to burn tokens, hit the quota, and calibrate their spend to look slightly above average compared to their peers. It's a completely manufactured economy of waste.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Not every company got this wrong. Let's compare Meta's highly publicized approach with how Shopify handled things. Meta's token leaderboard was gamified, competitive, status-driven, and ultimately it promoted massive waste. Shopify, on the other hand, built one of the very first token tracking systems, and they actually made it work by keeping it diagnostic, focused on problem solving, and deeply structural. Here is exactly how Shopify's head of engineering, Farhan Thawar, approached AI productivity. First off, they specifically renamed it from a leaderboard to a usage dashboard to immediately remove that toxic competitive element. Next, they installed circuit breakers. Basically, if your personal token spend spikes suddenly, they automatically cut off your access. You can totally renew it if the spike was deliberate, but this brilliant little move caught runaway agents instantly. Furthermore, they found that by investigating these spikes, they were actually uncovering deep, hidden bugs in their own infrastructure. And perhaps the most crucial takeaway, they don't look at who uses the most tokens, they look at whose tokens cost the most. High-cost tokens usually mean the developer is doing incredibly complex, in-depth work, which management actually wants to study and learn from. They're using the data to understand the work, not to rank the worker, a real game changer.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4, the big picture and the lines of code trap.
Because let's be real, while AI is the brand new kid on the block, human nature in the tech industry, not so much. This entire token maxing trend is really just a modern spin on a very old, very flawed engineering metric. Consider this. Yesterday, management tried to measure productivity by counting the lines of code a developer wrote. And how did devs respond? Well, they gained it. They wrote massive amounts of useless, boilerplate code just to inflate their numbers. Today, management is trying to measure productivity by counting AI tokens. And how are devs responding? By gaming it with throwaway AI prompts. There's this famous saying in economics called Goodhart's Law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. The best developers aren't the ones who write the most code, and they certainly aren't the ones who burn the most tokens. They're the ones who solve the hardest business problems quickly and reliably.
So as we all navigate this massive industry-wide AI transition, it really leaves us with one crucial question to chew on. Are we actually measuring the work, or are we just measuring the waste? Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and I hope it gave you a fresh perspective on the true cost of the AI illusion.